So today is Ascension Sunday, and that means that next week is Pentecost Sunday, two important holidays, more rarely celebrated by evangelicals than they should be. They should be celebrated by evangelicals like Christmas and Easter because they tell the evangel, the gospel. Let's take a moment this morning and look at the gospel involved in Ascension and Pentecost. They are two parts of the gospel, after all, that Paul puts together as critical. He says this in Ephesians 4:7-8. With each one of us, grace was given according to the measure of Christ's gift. Therefore, he says, when he ascended on high, he led captivity captive, gave gifts to men. Now, there are both holidays there in verse 8. He ascended on high is Ascension, and he gave gifts to men is Pentecost. And Paul places both of them as events that bring us the grace of God. For Ascension remembers that moment when Jesus gave the great commission to the disciples, go to the nations and to disciple them. Then he rose bodily to the heavenly throne. And Pentecost remembers that moment when he sent his Holy Spirit from that throne to accomplish that task he had given them. Ascension is amazing, for God did not just vanish to heaven. He'd done that many times before. He just vanished before the ascension. But at that time, at the ascension, he had them watch him as he bodily rose above them into the clouds. So why? So that they would see that his humanity was in the presence of God. The writer of Hebrews puts it this way: seeing then that we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens. We do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weakness, but was in all points tempted as we are. And ascension is the truth that sympathy, that's the author's word, sympathy is enthroned as God in heaven. Because God in the flesh reigns in heaven. Pentecost is the amazing answer to what he's doing there, on that throne in his sympathizing flesh. What's he doing? Well, Jesus told us what he would be doing when he got there, before he got there, when he was comforting his disciples, that he was going to leave them for heaven. And he said this in John 16:17. If I do not go away, the Helper will not come to you. But if I depart, I will send him to you. God in the flesh reigns in heaven, and he sends his Spirit from there into our flesh here on earth. That is the gospel of Ascension and Pentecost. That is the gospel that God reigns for your good, Ascension, and acts for your good, Pentecost. It is the gospel that what he accomplished on the cross now wears the crown, Ascension, and is applying those accomplishments of the cross to your life now, Pentecost. It is the gospel of John 14:18. I will not leave you as orphans. Hebrews tells us that this should affect our prayer life. Come boldly to the throne of grace. Paul tells us this should affect our courage in life, for you did not receive a spirit of fear. Peter tells us this should affect our church life. You are being built into a spiritual house to offer spiritual sacrifices. John tells us this just affects it all. This is how we know that we live in him and he in us, for he has given us his Spirit. And this also reminds us of our need to confess. Hear this from Psalm 51:3. For I acknowledge my transgressions, my sins always before me. Let us worship and bow down to me before the Lord our God, our Maker.